I've got a couple things I want to ask you about. Let's talk about casting Nick Cage in this role, because I've been in the comedy business for 35 years, and the idea of picking one of the most iconic film stars of contemporary film to then be an everyman, and it works incredibly well. And I wondered, was that ever a doubt in your mind in terms of who would take that role?
I mean, I was very happy that he wanted to be in the movie, but it was like the challenge a little bit was to shave off his, unusual charisma and very recognizable face and vibes, and try to replace that with something that felt more like my dad.
Yeah. So it's funny you said it. So my first thing, I read this interview with Deadline where you said, quote, "I remember thinking about how my father would navigate viral and how he'd fumble it and not be able to understand the dynamics. And there was so much comedy coming from imagining my father trying to navigate this very modern way of getting famous." So
yeah, I feel like I need to, just. I'm not saying my dad would do this. He would act differently. He would fumble for sure, but he wouldn't do this.
So, and the other thing, I mean, you're playing with this idea of identity, right? And we hear these terms like identity politics, and we hear cancel culture, we could talk about in the film, and they're so devoid of nuance. And I think this format, right, when you have 90 minutes or so to play with it, allows you to see all sides of this, which is really both fascinating and hilarious. And I'm curious too. I think for many of us who are sitting here in Chicago, we feel this is such an American phenomenon. But I mean, you're Norwegian, right?
Yeah, exactly.
How much of these concepts are playing in your culture over there?
Well, you're not allowed to be famous in Norway.
Okay.
It's like actually like a cultural rule. Like you're not allowed to think you're better than anyone else. And so yeah, this feels like more of an American culture. It was like, this is my first English language movie, and I wanted to start it in like the suburban American nuclear family kitchen. With the first scene taking place there, and see where that took me.
Yeah. So get ready with your questions. One more thing. So you're not always a fan of happy endings, I read about in films.
I mean, it doesn't have to be happy to be good, I guess.
Yeah. But I think what I read that you said about too is it sometimes gives you a sort of a false bead on life.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I think sometimes. Well, I guess like the way that we make sense of anything is sort of through a story, and movies gives us these story contexts and kind of like an expectation of how life is going to be. And I think setting people up with too much hopeful expectations of what life is going to hurl at you, could make you less resilient to life's many, difficult ups and downs. And that I found it to be a little bit of a responsibility to be more truthful, or kind of the bearer of maybe bad news about like life kind of is difficult. And I think for me, comedy is a way to cope with that. And I think being from Norway, where half the year we're frozen and there's almost no sunlight, and like the only thing you can be is like gallows humor, and you kind of find comedy in the misery.
The Chicagoans can relate.
Yeah, exactly. But I gotta say, like, life is beautiful from the right angle.
Yeah, I love that. All right, questions out there? Woo! Yeah, right there. Yeah.
Okay, I was just wondering, which of the dream scenes was the most fun to make?
Which of the dream scenes was the most fun to make?
I mean, there is a scene with an earthquake where there's no digital effects or anything. It's all happening in camera. And I remember standing on the sidelines filming that with my iPhone as it was happening. You can hear me like giggling so much. So I must have enjoyed that a lot. But I do remember just the scene when Paul Matthews is standing in a dark corner and walks out. Like that was really, really fun. Yeah.
I mean, the comedy of that, right? You're just letting it happen.
Yeah, and
Nothing's
it's,
forced.
and it's so sparse. It's like it's a scene that takes place in a shitty little apartment, and there's two actors, and there's almost like no art direction or anything. It's just the tension of that situation, and that was like felt in the room when we were shooting it, and didn't need like the magic of movie editing almost. It just happened on set.
We had a panel talking about comedy, parody, satire this afternoon, and one of the things that someone asked about was shooting comedy, like editing and angles, and I think the whole panel agreed, like for a lot of comedy, it's getting out of the way. It's stepping back and letting the thing happen and making sure you can see that. And I think that the beautiful comedic moments in this film feel natural, I think, in part because they are, if you let them just be.
Yeah, but also like I love just all the tools in the toolkit for evoking certain emotions. And I fought to shoot this on film. I opted for I had to edit the film myself for free in order to just be able to shoot it on film.
Wow.
So I'm not like. I've heard the thing before where comedy should strip everything away. It's just a handheld video camera. And sure, if that makes sense for what you're making, but I'm trying to also evoke other emotions, and there's like a cinematic language that I'm interested in like in more of when you shoot something like The Office. I think what it makes us feel is like we're sort of present in the moment that's happening. And I think what I am interested in, I feel like movies sometimes can be a shared dream, that we all sit in the same room and we're experiencing the same dream together. And to be able to do that, there's certain ways you have to shoot that makes you feel a little bit out of your own reality. And I think that is also important to me.
Yeah, fascinating. Okay, well, yeah, right here.
Paul's journey started in Dreams started as benign,
Yeah.
and then slowly develops into something more sinister. Was that build up basically to warn us about the commodification of literally our dreams?
Wow, interesting.
Should we summarize the question?
Let's do that. So the benign to sinister role that the dreams take is that to warn us about the commodification of our dreams?
Well, like in the ending, they're literally
They're selling a product.
ads and
Yeah.
marketing. Is that some kind of statement on capitalism?
Capitalism,
Well,
socialism.
I think that any phenomenon, like say punk rock, started out as a genuine movement, and then what was the pipeline? It took like a year before it was like Levi's pants with holes ready ripped in them, H&M T-shirt with like Sex Pistols. There's any phenomenon seems to be like co-opted by capitalism, and the pureness of it, if there ever was one, seems like always there's the corruption of capitalism sort of takes us stab at anything or hollows everything out in some way. So it's difficult. I think even for Paul Matthews is trying to stay pure and not become a Sprite ad, and in the end it's impossible. They're too powerful.
Other question? Yes, over here.
So I really enjoyed how the editing of the film just really made the comedy airtight. Like all those quick little shots, just darting from Nick Cage's face to an Aubrey glance or something. I thought that was what made it really funny to me. But it reminds me of how there's different types of comedies in film. So I'm curious, how did you approach what type of comedy you wanted to pursue? Did you kind of know you were gonna aim for kind of a bittersweet comedy, or did you really just want to focus on
Yeah, so what she's asking, what kind of comedy were you aiming for? Because there is a lot going on in this film comedically.
Yeah, I'm sort of new to this in a way. Like, relatively speaking, kind of a young filmmaker, believe it or not. And I'm following my intuition more than like, I'm not completely having mapped it all out. I don't have like a set theory or a specific this formula that I'm working from. I'm kind of making up one as I go. I think the one thing that I'm aware of though with the movies I've made so far, like I made Sick of Myself, another movie, and this one, like kind of back to back, and both with one sort of rule in my head. It was that none of the characters should be aware that they're in a comedy. That for them, they're in a drama, and every situation has, gravity and stakes and utter seriousness to them. And it's us, the audience, we're watching, it becomes a comedy in this theater, but when we're shooting it, we're like, this is a drama, you're in a drama scene right now, take this very seriously. Of course, I couldn't completely adhere to that or respect that, so I had to move my monitor into different rooms because I was laughing. But we were trying to stick to that as a sort of rule.
Well, and I think the fact that you cast people like Kate Berlant and Tim Meadows, two incredibly grounded performers whose comedy comes out of like shared behavior, shared truth. This idea, certainly in Second City, where you're talking about playing to the top of your intelligence. It doesn't.
Exactly. Well,
doesn't
Del Close.
Del Close.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Play it to the top of your intelligence. That's a thing that I think is important. Or two, I think like the slight rework of that rule is play to the top of your integrity.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's why, that's a hilarious fart joke.
I work hard for that.
No, you have it like that. The fart jokes are, they can be terrible. And in that case, that was just this moment. You saw how the audience just responded in that moment. Because it was true. That was the thing.
Yeah, and that was like one of the first scenes I had in mind for this concept. It's really not. What was funny about this as a concept is a version of you lives inside of people's heads, and they build expectations that they think is going to be matched in reality. And that scene is like when the idea, like what I ordered versus what I got in the menu becomes a reality. And you see, this woman who's had an unbelievable, crazy sex god in her head. And I was like, what's the opposite of that?
Yeah, she got the opposite. All right, question. Back there, I see a white sleeve. Yep.
If you couldn't get Nicolas Cage for the role, who was the next choice?
So if Nick Cage wasn't available for the role, did you have a next choice?
No.
Did you?
No, also.
No.
Get Nick Cage, just don't take him.
Yeah. All right. Who else? Yeah, right.
What was it like having Ari Aster's production company behind this stuff?
Ari Aster's production company was like having the
Square Peg, Lars Knudsen and Ari Aster, great guys. They picked me up from the streets, I was like a nobody, and they saw something in me. And they
Was this the mean streets of Oslo?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm very grateful. They were the best partners, and I couldn't speak more highly of it. That was just a very good experience.
So we have time for one more question, so this has to be the best question. Who wants to take that? You.
Do you have any ideas
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's some that were even cut. There's, I can mention that one. It's a great scene. It was fun. It was, in the Paris sequence at the end, he, meets a woman who's had dreams of, that he tapes her to the wall, like really far up, all the way by the ceiling. And also scattered around, he tapes French baguettes around her before he tortures her. And we shot that scene, and it was actually like, how to like tape a woman up on the wall and staying within union rules and everything was like the most difficult thing, and it was so heartbreaking when I realized I needed to cut that scene. Maybe there's like a bonus DVD extra or something. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. Excellent.